Hello, Magic Makers. Welcome to Storytime with Mombierella. This is a young adult fiction and may be inappropriate for some younger audiences. Mother Knows Best. A Tale of the Old Witch by Serena Valentino. Copyright Disney Enterprises Incorporated, 2018. Chapter 19. Gothel's New Home. "I thought they would be here before now," said Ruby, squinting as she looked down the road, hoping to spy Gothel and Flonz's caravan making its way. "We would have seen them if they were on the road, Ruby," said Lucinda. "Hope they were okay." "We haven't heard anything since Jacob packed them off," Martha said, fretting and fidgeting with the lace on her dress. The Odd Sisters looked around their friend's new home. It was a country house, really, larger than a cottage, as Jacob had described it in his letter, but decidedly smaller than what Gothel was used to in the dead woods. The Odd Sisters thought Gothel could be happy there, though. There was a stone fence with a wooden gate at the road, and beyond were beautiful flowering cherry, almond, and magnolia trees, along with fragrant honeysuckle, jasmine, and lavender bushes. It was rather idyllic, the sort of house you read about in a romantic story, with mossy stones, overgrown ivy, and tendrils covered in roses. The sort of house a young woman and her sisters moved to after their situations are reduced, but the reader is left confused, because it's a charming, beautiful house that anyone would be happy to have. So it's a wonder why the protagonists are moaning about the size of the sitting room, or lamenting over the parlor being too small to fit a piano. The house was a two-story affair. Downstairs were the double parlor, kitchen, dining room, and a sitting room Gothel could use as her library. Upstairs were the bedrooms, one for each sister, a small one for a maid, should Gothel decide to take one on. And if Gothel chose, the large attic with exposed beams could be used to practice magic. The sisters thought Jacob had done well to find Gothel such a lovely home, surrounded by life and beauty. The Odd Sisters had magically perched their own house nearby, just inside the boundaries of Gothel's new property, in a lovely field of wild flowers, next to a creek with an arched bridge that took travelers to the closest town, where they could buy provisions and other sundries. On the other side of the field were rocky, black cliffs overlooking the ocean. It was really a lovely spot. "Perhaps they've stopped to rest in one of the neighboring towns," said Ruby. "I'm sure that's it," said Martha, clearly worried. "Well, I think you two should stay here and wait for them while I go to town to get some things I know Gothel will need." Lucinda gave her sisters a smile and then added, "I won't be gone long," as she walked to their house, waiting in the wildflower field. It was a charming green gingerbread-style house with a witch's cap roof, stained glass windows, and black shutters. When Lucinda got into the house, she waved to her sisters from the large round kitchen window and yelled, "Don't worry, sisters. I'm sure they'll be here soon, perhaps even before I get back." And off she went, her house rising into the clouds. It wasn't often Lucinda traveled in her house without her sisters. It was strange to see them so small down below, with looks of worry on their faces. Perhaps it was strange for them as well, seeing her leave without them. "Not to worry, my dears," she thought. "I'll be back with you soon." No sooner had she gotten into the clouds than it was time to land the Witch's Cap house in a lovely little town with rows of shops. There were dress shops, a butcher, an open-air market that sold all sorts of produce and herbs, and a baker who baked breads and made sweets in the shapes of animals. He had two large windows in the front of the bakery, one that featured his edible menagerie, and one where he would show off his talents to the passers-by, likely curious about how he made his confections. Lucinda loved the idea of Gothel's walking the cobblestone path, awestruck by the shops. She almost felt guilty for doing the shopping for her, taking the pleasure away from her, but she knew Gothel would be exhausted when she arrived at her new home, and Lucinda wanted her to be comfortable in her new surroundings. Lucinda's first stop was the dressmaker and notation shop. It was called Fripperies, which she found amusing. She noticed in the window of the shop there were little cards offering and requesting various services. When Lucinda walked into the store, the brass bell overhead rang, getting the attention of the proprietress, who was busy behind the counter, putting away spools of ribbon. "Hello, may I help you with something?" asked the woman, eyeing Lucinda, who was suddenly thankful she had been thoughtful enough to wear something nondescript. She was wearing a simple dress, the color of eggplants, trimmed in delicate black lace. and none of her normal ornamentation in her hair. She always found it best to be plain as possible when traveling in those small towns, and the last thing she wanted to do was draw unwanted attention to herself or Gothel. "Hello, yes, good afternoon," said Lucinda. "I noticed the advertisements in your window. I'm setting up a household for my dear sister, who will be arriving at her new home just one town over. I'm looking for a cook who's also willing to do some shopping, and perhaps a girl who can care for the house. May I fill out a card for your window?" The woman behind the counter smiled at Lucinda, putting down her ribbon. She seemed to be considering something. "Well, I do have someone I think would be perfect for the position. She's good references. She's an older woman, mind you, but very hard-working. If it's a small town, she could probably manage everything." Lucinda smiled at the woman. "As long as you don't think it would be too much for her, my sister would happily pay her more for the extra duties. When can you arrange to send her over?" The woman handed Lucinda a number of handwritten references and a card with the woman's name printed on it. "Everything seems to be in order. I assume you've checked her references?" "Oh, yes." Lucinda laughed. "I'm so sorry. I've completely neglected to introduce myself. My name is Lucinda White." "A pleasure to meet you, my lady. And my name is Miss Lovelace. This is my establishment. Has been for the past 6 years." "A pleasure to meet you as well, Miss Lovelace. I appreciate your help, and I admire your name. I assume I can count on you to contact Miss Tittlebottom and inform her we would be happy to have her fill our post?" asked Lucinda, as she passed Miss Lovelace a card with Gothel's address, and then she added, "And please, do send along a young girl with good qualifications who can do the cleaning if Miss Tittlebottom has any objections whatsoever with the amount of work that will be required." Miss Lovelace laughed. "Miss Tittlebottom can always be counted upon to make her feelings known. I'll be sure to let her know that is an option. Don't you worry." "Good, and we will provide a carriage to pick her up and her things when she's ready." "I'll be sure to let her know. Is there anything else I can do for you?" "Nothing at the moment, but I thank you," said Lucinda, handing Miss Lovelace a small pouch of coins. "That is for your service, Miss Lovelace. Thank you, and have a lovely day." "Thank you, my lady. Come again." The brass bell rang as Lucinda exited. She often laughed to herself when she saw the looks on people's faces when she told them her last name. Miss Lovelace's only admission to knowing Lucinda was one of the king's relations was when she referred to her as Lady. So her cousin's name had traveled even to that great distance. Never mind all that, she told herself. There's still much to do. She spent most of the afternoon wandering the various shops and placing orders to be delivered to Gothel's new home. By the time Lucinda was done shopping, she'd arranged the entire stocking of Gothel's larder and acquired bedding and various other things Gothel might need. Jacob had fortunately arranged the delivery of furniture when he bought the house some years ago, and he thoughtfully had it covered in white cloth to keep it from getting dusty until his little witch arrived. Hopefully, Ruby and Martha think to remove the cloths before Gothel arrives, Lucinda thought. Lucinda had only one basket to take with her on her trip back to Gothel's new home, the provisions for that evening's dinner. She wasn't sure how soon the deliveries would arrive, and thought it best to take dinner home herself. As Lucinda flew overhead, she could see Gothel's carriage and many wagons lined up outside her new home. They must be inside, she thought as she landed the house in the nearby field, filled with beautiful yellow wildflowers. She saw her sisters run to the windows so they could see her land, excited to share the news that Gothel and Flans had finally arrived. "Lucinda! Lucinda! They're here!" screeched Ruby and Martha. Lucinda laughed. "Yes, I see that. How is our little witch?" "Oh, she's exhausted," said Martha. "She's in torment," said Ruby. "All to be expected," said Lucinda. "And how's Flans?" "Oh, she's thriving," said Ruby. "She's upstairs with Gothel now," said Martha. "Shall we stay and take care of our little witch, then, sisters? She needs us now that she has no one else to care for her, at least until we can see her cook Mrs. Tittlebottom settled in." Ruby and Martha exchanged amused glances at the cook's name. "Mrs. Tittlebottom?" The three sisters laughed. "Yes, her name is Mrs. Tittlebottom. Contain yourselves." "We won't stay too long, will we, Lucinda?" asked Ruby. We still have the matter of Circe. Don't worry, sisters. We won't stay long. I promise. I just want to see that Gothel is in good hands. Shall we leave Flans here to keep an eye on things? Martha looked around to see if anyone was listening, as if Gothel would pop out from behind a curtain. Do you think Gothel will share the flower with us, Lucinda? Have you seen it anywhere? I've searched everywhere. Shh! I didn't sense it from overheard either. Let's not bother Gothel with that right now. Let's go upstairs. I assume Gothel is resting. She is. She's upstairs with Flans. Oh, Lucinda, she's in terrible shape. The long sleep has exhausted her, said Ruby. She lost her home and her companion, Jacob, said Lucinda. Not to mention her sisters, said Martha. We will do what we can to help her. We know all too well what it's like to lose a sister, said Lucinda. But we will get Circe's back, won't we, Lucinda? Yes, my dear. One way or another, we will get her back. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember, like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, share with a friend, comment down below. And remember, let it go and keep moving forward. Have a magical day. Bye.